and we're about where we're at. So this time zone, we're about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. We're actually kicking off a Hawaiian Council General Meeting, and these are the beautiful folks that we have involved today. So we've got Charles, Kamanu, Michael, Tom, and Raghu. So a couple of folks are going to be visitors, but it doesn't really matter because the voting process can happen by anyone, anywhere. And we'll go ahead and kind of talk through that and show you how that works. So today, if you want to see the agenda or the different meetings, these are live for everyone. You can go to councils, and then you can click on the general council, because that's what this is. And you can see past meetings, and you can also see upcoming meetings. You can also see links of where they are as well. So when you drill into them, you can actually see the different agenda, as well as the presenter, the time allotted, and then the topic, and then a link to any respective content as it may be online, third party. You can see the mouse over here, and then also the voting process. So as anyone wants to vote real time, this is basically the process that will happen. These particular topics are going to have some time to actually review. So these will be open for 3 weeks. At least a majority of them will be. So 21 days for folks to actually get their votes and perspectives in as it streams, not just live, but as people get around to it. So we're going to go ahead and kick off with a quick prayer. Kamanu, do you want to start us?
Sure. E koma koma koi loko kalani honi koi noa mahalo na mako i o e koko mai kai hawe mai mako I ke amanawa he puli no ke ia he puli ke mai no I ko ike o ia I ko ike pono no laila e holomua no mako I ko mana I ko aloha I ko malama lama no. Koa, we thank you for this opportunity and privilege we have to come together as a council to review matters of great importance to your children here in this part of the Lord's Vineyard. Thankful for all the beautiful, gifted, intelligent contributors who will be participating in this meeting, and pray thy spirit will be with us to grant us the light and wisdom we need to move forward, that we might do this in accordance with thy will and making sure that all things are done for the good and benefit of all. He puli no mako ke ia I kai noa hemalele Yesu Christo. Amen.
Thank you, Kamanu. Just as brief introductions, we've got Charles, who basically helped bring all these folks together. We've got myself, and this is a beautiful little photo of Charles here, even though he's indisposed right now. And then there he is. So talk about having a meeting, huh? He's actually getting a haircut at the same time. It's beautiful. Welcome to technology. And then we've got Raghu, who's actually written many books, almost 30 books on economics. And he's done a lot within the shopping world and really how to solve a lot of the vexing problems that humanity has with some simple twists. And when I say twists, it's just like logical things, whether it's healthcare, whether it's finance. His concepts are absolutely futuristic and simple. So grateful for him taking the time to join us, and he'll be able to lead us in some 6 steps that we'll be getting into in a little while in the future. And then here with me physically is a gentleman named Tom, who I've worked with for at least over the last year here in the Hawaiian Islands, but he's spent longer than I've been alive in the islands. And he's like me, as well as like Raghu, where our bloodlines were not physically born here, but we have a massive drive, or not even vested interest, because it's not even a vested interest. There's a purpose-driven reality to help the gathering and the standing up process to actually be realized. But we understand that, one, we're outsiders on one hand, but really we're all in this human race, and this is actually going to be something that impacts humanity globally. So we're grateful to be involved and having a role. And I'm personally grateful for the opportunity to be somewhat adopted into this ecosystem, but I've got a lot to learn, and I'm grateful to do it at the feet of amazing spirits and giants like Kamanu and Charles and the many spheres of individuals that they've introduced us to. So with that being said, with introductions, is there any, and by the way, Tom has written many books in the education world and teaches me every single time I have them some core skills around the communication and navigating side of the world, which we'll explore in other ecosystems. But grateful for all of the folks coming together and actually caring about these topics because they're important for humanity. Not just the Hawaiian Kingdom, but the Hawaiian Kingdom will be a massive beacon for humanity in the future. And this is actually streaming a different way, so we're going to move from that into the actual agenda. Unless there's anything that people want to talk about before we get into it, I'd like to maybe Kamanu, for those that you may have heard from him before, but he's the one that gave the opening invocation and prayer, and he's really, for me personally, he's the core reason why the Hawaiian Islands are not like other islands because of him, because of my, when I've personally, for the last 12 months, I've been to 19 different countries, 4 different, and they're all decentralized islands, so to speak, all in the Pacific. But the understanding and purpose and drivers and really the spirit that Kamanu brings was a natural fit from the first time that we met, and Charles introduced us, and through a wonderful gal named Calais, but the ability for him to just understand the concepts of decentralization and identity and sovereignty, and it rang true within his being. And so it was very quick, primarily because he had a lot of history in the technology world, and the concepts were not foreign on him at all. They were very natural and very aligned. And so it took off in a big way. And as we started working with other ecosystems, wonderful people, whether they've been doing it for 30 plus years and taking a legal route down the UN, or whether they've been working with the United States with a different legal route and a different positioning, but it's or even just straight getting to work. Like there's a lot of folks that have just gotten to work, like Don, as well as Bumpy and Sai. There's lots of just wonderful people that really care. And the message that they gave to me was, Mike, you don't need to be uniting. We don't need to unite anything. We're all in the same boats. And we may be in different boats, but we're all in the same water as well as going in the same direction. So Kamanu really, I believe, encompasses an understanding of the culture, the history, the purpose, the driver, the rituals, and the law, the historic law, the current law. He, as a father, he was creating birth certificates himself, understanding the role that he had as a father to not just push that on to another system, and to actually study the law, study the opportunity, and then do it. And I haven't met many people that have actually done that. And so to follow in his footsteps and guidance is just, it's a wonderful opportunity. So I can't keep blabbing there, but Kamanu, maybe you could lead us in, it looks like Ron, there may be an opportunity for Ron to join in a little later, but we'll skip over the notice to quit topics. And then if we want to just jump into, what is this, 7-1. So we'll go ahead and let you run that if that's okay.
Yeah, no problem. So one of the things I did, I put it in the chat, and I wanted everybody to at least have access to it. So if they can pull in the chat, they can see that here is a very important statute provision of Hawaiian law. And I say Hawaiian law because it actually comes from the Civil Code of 1859. So if you open that up, take a look at that chat, and you'll notice right there on the bottom, the first reference to this state adopted statute is the Civil Code of 1859, section 1477. What does that mean? That means without the existence of the Civil Code, HRS 7-1 would not exist. Now, when you read that, what's important about this is it makes several important declarations or statements where the landlords have obtained or may hereafter obtain an allodial title. Now, what's wrong with having that law in the state of Hawaii? The state doesn't issue allodial titles. You guys get where I'm going with this?
Yeah.
So if your family, who's been here for the last 200 years, are in possession of an allodial title, this law applies to you. Nobody else. Because no one else has allodial titles. Allodial titles were only issued in the kingdom of Hawaii. So that piece of paper that says Palapala Silanui, that paper has a lot of weight, a lot of legal weight. And so that's what you want to pay attention to. Now, it gives you several rights. It declares several rights associated with this particular statute. You have the right to what? The right to take
Drinking water.
You
Running
take water,
right away.
the right to take firewood, the right to. So we're talking about gathering, right? You have a right to gather these things because at the time that these laws were adopted, the time this particular code was adopted by the Kingdom of Hawaii in 1859, these were essentials for people at the time. They needed fire. They needed to have access to tea leaves, right? What do we use tea leaves for in Hawaii? Well, I can tell you as a kahu and as a minister, the tea leaf is an important and essential part of our rituals, our blessings, when we cook our food, yeah, lao lao, all wrapped up in tea leaves. So anyway, so there are some really essential purposes for which this law was created. Again, without the Civil Code of 1859, this law would not exist, because if you go back and search the Civil Code of 1859, it almost spells it out word for word, same thing, with the exception of the fact that there is a Hawaiian or Olelo Hawaii, Hawaiian language version. All right, we need to have a discussion and we need to have a motion to adopt or modify, because I think this is going to become one of those essential pieces to how we move forward. I'm going to share with you that this is the statute we used in August of 2009 when there was a proposal by the county council to impose a tax on Kuleana lands. And we felt, or we reasoned, that if the county council could demonstrate to us that their authority, their taxing authority, comes from the very laws that created Kuleana lands, and they could do it. But if the law did not exist, they couldn't exercise authority they didn't have, right? That the law did not provide for. And so the county of Maui becomes the only county that withdrew taxation of Kuleana lands. And we, at least me personally, we were contacted by members that constituted the general councils for Hawaii and Kauai, and they wanted to know how were we able to convince the county council that they needed to withdraw that proposal. It was really nothing we did. It was the law. The Hawaii Revised Statutes also adopted the Penal Code of 1850, which is the Kuleana Land Act. And unless you understood what the law said, you really couldn't exercise any kind of taxing authority you did not have. So anyway, that basic, right? So if you guys take a look at this, there's got to be some questions. If you don't have any questions, then I'm going to make a motion that we take.
Could you just read it so that we audibly have a recording of it as well as the text?
Sure.
Because this is the third-party site that's actually the Hawaiian government site. So I don't know if are you seeing my stream?
Yeah.
Okay.
No worries.
Okay.
let me go ahead and read it as requested. HRS 7-1, building materials, water, etc. Landlord titles subject to tenant's use. Where the landlords have obtained or may hereafter obtain allodial titles to their lands, the people on each of the lands shall not be deprived of the right to take firewood, house timber, aho cord, thatch, or key leaf from the land on which they live for their own private use, but they shall not have a right to take such articles to sell for profit. The people shall also have a right to drinking water and running water and the right of way. So we're talking about an access right. The springs of water, running water, and roads shall be free to all, on all lands granted in fee simple, provided that this shall not be applicable to wells and water courses, which individuals have made for their own use. This is predicated on the Civil Code of 1859, Section 1477. Everybody good?
Yeah, one thing I'd love to dig into, one, it's like this, it just is common sense, but it's interesting how different parts of the world are actually starting to violate simple things such as water that falls from the sky and onto your roof and you can't even catch it and use it, whether you're going to drink it or grow a garden with it. But when they talk about roads, I want to kind of dig into the roads because I think that's a key part of things. Because roads, you know, back then, I don't think they had asphalt like we do now. And roads today, at least in the United States of America, the Supreme Court has defined similar to this, where you basically have the right to travel, but if you're providing a service like you're an Uber driver, that is a very different type of role. Similar to what we're talking about here, where you can take firewood and timber and cord and thatch and use it for your personal use, but not use it to sell for profit. So those parallel, you know, there's some very interesting elements in there that, one, you'll have right away from the roads. Two, you'll have the ability to travel on the road. So those are two probably key points. In
here, there's a really, really important piece about water. What is the one basic, most fundamental, universal right? That everybody has the right to what?
Access it.
You have the right to live.
Oh, yeah.
You couldn't live without water.
Yeah.
That's why this law is important. This law helps protect your right to water so that you can ensure your right to live.
And we should probably underscore clean water, because there's a lot of folks that'll come in and they won't be good stewards over the water. Next thing you know is you're drinking it and you're sick, and your own internal systems, you know, could not live, in some cases cause death. But so making sure that the land is cared for in such a way where water is clean and pure to the human body. I do know, living in New Zealand in Aotearoa, they also had a law that, it was a recent law, well, it came back through history with the Maoris, where any water that actually flowed through a human body couldn't be recycled. Like, for instance, if you live in New York City in Manhattan, you're drinking water that's probably been through the system of another human body 8+ times. And that just goes back to when water treatment systems all flow through. But in New Zealand, where the water comes down, natural flows out, they had to build the waterways in such a way where drainage water that was from waste or sewage went to the ocean. And so it didn't get repurposed and used to go back through the human body. I thought that was very intelligent, because water has an energy and life that I don't think we understand today. I mean, I think science is doing some amazing things, but I really think that there is knowledge that we don't understand around water, specifically salt water. And so if there's anything that we can do to make sure that we're caring for the water, I mean, you hit it right on the head, it's life. It's one of the most valuable substances we have other than the physical earth and sun and air. I mean, it's without it, we can't live. So,
Oh, by virtue of this particular statute, then we all agree that we all have the right, right? We all have the right to live. In order to ensure that right is not encroached, infringed, or compromised, then we need to protect our right to water. We're in a situation right now here in Lahaina where the infrastructure has been compromised because of the wildfire disaster that took place August 8th, 2023. So if the people are not careful and if they're not cognizant of their right to clean drinking water in order to protect their right to live, then it'll be easy for them to be compromised just because they're either ignorant or indifferent. And all they want to do is they just want to move back home without realizing that if there is not a very safe infrastructure put in place, their right to live could be compromised by poisons, toxins, and contaminants still present in the soil.
yeah, I would even go a step further that before the 8th, you know, the water, not just treatment, but how it was managed. When the fire trucks were pulled up to go and try and put out the fire and they hook up their hoses, the water doesn't come on and the fire truck and the hoses and everything else burns up. So, and this doesn't talk about, you know, fire systems and all the other things, but there's also an element of accountability and sustainability that ties to it. Is there anything that you want to expound upon or focus in on around allodial title?
Yeah, you know, one of the things that we don't talk a lot about here in contemporary or modern Hawaii today is what an allodial title means and why is it still relevant. Anybody know what an allodial title is? An allodial title is an absolute title, right? The only person who had complete allodium over an entire 4 million acres that constitute the Hawaiian Islands was a king. And the king we know as Kamehameha III or Kawikiauli is the king who divested his allodial holdings to his people. And so he gave them a third of the kingdom, a third of the absolute rights. And now the people, by virtue of the Penal Code of 1850, found on page 202 of the Kuleana Land Act, they now have absolute rights to land. So you got to ask yourself, is this term, allodial title, is it pertinent and relevant to the state of Hawaii today? Must be, because we just pulled this up straight from this Hawaii State Legislature, their website. So you got to ask yourself, who are these landlords that are in possession of allodial titles? Well, there would be people like my ancestors, Charles' ancestor, who, pursuant to the Penal Code of 1850, page 202 of the Kuleana Land Act, went before the Board of Land Commissioners, submitted their claim, and a Land Commission award was granted, given to that particular individual. If you go to, okay, this is a great segue into the HRS 172.11 and 12. If you take a look at those particular statutes, you'll find that the rights to those lands are still held intact, at least in so far as that statute is concerned, because it tells you that the benefit of that title inures to the heirs. Now, this was modified to help fit the objectives or support the objectives of the Republic of Hawaii, which was in in legal or public government because it was just a handful of American businessmen. And so it was almost like our version of apartheid. But if you take a look at 172.11, it says land patents and land commission awards. Land patents on land commission awards. You know what is really interesting about this particular statute? The state does not give out land patents. The state doesn't give out land commission awards. But here we have a law, a statute that exists. Why? Because those legal binding documents exist. Awards to whom and for whose benefit? Every land patent issued upon an award of the Board of Commissioners to quiet land titles. This is the Board of Commissioners from when the Kuleana Land Act was formed in 1815. Shall be in the name of the person to whom the original award was made. For example, Mai Kupuna, 1856, May 26 of 1856. Kahayali. So a land award is made to that, my ancestor, and that land award still is in the name of that ancestor. Title to the real estate thereby granted has been alienated, and all patents so issued shall inure to the benefit of the heirs and assigns. Let's look at it again. Every land patent issued upon an award of the Board of Commissioners to quiet land titles. The Board of Commissioners awarded a land commission award to this kupuna shall be in the name of the person to whom the original award was made, even though the person is deceased or the title to the real estate thereby granted has been alienated. All land patents so issued shall inure to the benefit of the heirs and assigns of the holder of the original award. How cool is that? So if that's true, then this is according to the law of 1872, chapter 21, section 1, then we should be able to find original documents of the land commission awards. And in another meeting we'll hold, we'll explore that even further and show you what those land commission awards look like and how you can find them. Number 172-12, the land patents issued after boundary and commutation settled. So that means a land patent or land award was granted after a commutation was given. For example, I think my kupuna bought 400 acres for $100. $100.25. And so that exchange is made to the Minister of Interior, to the Board of Land Commissioners, done. Upon presentation to the Department of Land and Natural Resources, well, DLNR didn't exist at the time, of a certificate of a commissioner of boundaries defining the boundaries of a portion of an ahupua'a. In our case, it's the ahupua'a known as Avakea on the Big Island of Hawaii, or other denomination of land. The department shall cause an appraisement to be made of the unimproved value of the portion of the land, and upon payment to the Department of the Government, commutation of that portion of the land. So, what is the evidence that we have that land belongs to our ancestor? We go to the state archives, we go to the Bureau of Conveyances, gather all the documentation. That becomes the physical evidence that this right is still intact by virtue of these laws, 172.11 and 172.12, which is based on the law of 1872, chapter 21, section 1, and 172, chapter 1872, chapter 21, section 3. Upon the appraisement as above provided, the department shall cause to be issued a land patent for that portion of land, which land patent shall define the boundaries of that portion. If you took a look at the Land Commission Award, and I'll show you what that looks like in a future meeting, you will actually see that it tells you Akau is north, H-I-K, Hikina, east, Komohana, K-O-M is abbreviation for west. So it's giving you the boundaries and the direction upon within what the boundaries or parameters are for that particular piece of land. Those documents exist, and because they exist, those rights are retained. And because those rights are retained, we have every excuse, every reason to go file a claim and fight for the right to protect it. Your average citizen, let's see, we have 1.6 million people that call Hawaii home. I would suggest that of the 1.6 million that call Hawaii home, probably less than 10% really take a look at this. And that's why you have a lot of corporate interests, right? Corporate entities that will encroach and infringe, and they follow a very simple process for adverse summary judgment based on an adverse claim. They'll come in and they'll put out a notice that goes out into the general it's publication, a newspaper or something or other. And by virtue of putting that in the newspaper, you as a descendant now have the responsibility to reply to someone else's claim of adverse possession against your right. And no. You as the heir or the lineal descendant have more of a claim for that particular parcel than, let's say, ABC Corporation or XYZ Corporation. You're the living heir. As the living heir, you have more rights to it than some corporation who feels that they can come in and just throw down $1 billion and say, hey, all right, I'm going to give you notice for 30 days.
So speaking of,
So I hope this helps. This helps kind of open this a little bit for all of us. And the purpose for sharing this is we need to, as a council, we need to decide if there is some action that we can take or should take, and how do we ensure that the rights of these people remain intact according to the statutes we just read.
and maybe even a process around how current individuals that call the Hawaiian Islands home, like that 1.6 million that you're talking about, how they can actually still call it home and still have the improvements that they've worked on and the lives that they've built, how they don't get alienated, and there's not a life that drastically changes, but the accountability of the earth and the soil and the land and what's under the sea, what's under the soil, what's over the airs, the frequencies, the waves, everything is put back to a stewardship that is empowered and enabled by the Hawaiian kingdom and the people therein. And right now, one of the things that's been eye-opening for me is the people therein is actually all of humanity. It's one world, one people. And when you talk about genealogical rights, there's a stewardship that comes with that then ties to a level that's even higher. So it's like, how do we, and I know we won't solve it now, but how do we go about defining the future? And when we talk about the future here, a simple example here of 2004, kind of, this is digital governance. 2025, there's different land, that goes back in a specific way, and how's that done? How does this look? How does it end up? How has this gone about? So right now we're just talking about really these specific areas here, which we're talking about, the agenda items as it relates to HRS 7-1, and then making a motion there, and another agenda item that's HRS 172, 11, and 12. And, again, making a motion there. Then it ties to some of the things that we'll talk about with Ron with a notice, and how do certain things apply. We need to go through and make sure that's done in such a way where there's no bloodshed, there's no real conflict, there's no real issues, but the stewardship, because everything that I've learned as I've gone through I would say, a crash course, and I still have not, I'm still very ignorant to a ton of things. But I think with that ignorance also comes an opportunity for people to have a conversation and say, hold on, that's not how it was. When the Queen actually did this, there was no bloodshed because of this reason. And it was given this way for this reason. And when we start understanding that, we may understand why arms weren't taken up and bloodshed didn't happen back then. And I think that's another reason why it's so important for the Hawaiian people to actually be able to write an opportunity for these simple, really stewardships. It's a responsibility. It's not like, in many ways, it's more work and effort and energy. But do we want to have, here, I'll pull this back out so we can kind of see our original. Actually, we pull it this way. So this anyone could basically vote on it, but we've got to have a motion to actually start the voting process. So
before we go into the voting or the motion, we need to come to some agreements. All right. So, like, for example, take a look at HRS 7-1. Can we agree to certain declarations of rights stated in that statute?
Yeah, like you're talking like the rights to a allodial title and the rights to lands and the rights to water and timber and cord and thatch, the ability to actually travel, whether it's through roads, private roads, whether it's, to have travel on the roads, the segregation between for-profit activities versus, just life and living. So is that what you're asking?
Yeah, because one of the key essentials to understand with that statute, what it's trying to do is prevent the people from falling into a commercial trap. They can objective and that provide for their own needs so that the king will never, ever have to concern himself with the needs of his subjects because they're all self-proficient. They should be able to provide for themselves. The will be someone who is anxiously engaged in the welfare of not just the immediate family, but the community at large. The Kuleana lands were designed to help create a place in the space Do we agree, by virtue of HRS 7-1 or the Civil Code of 1859, Section 1477, do we agree that those holding allodial titles or land commission awards should continue to retain those rights that are enumerated in HRS 7-1? If that's true, then we can make a motion to vote on it Because let me tell you what, there are some things I see in this particular statute we're going to have to modify and clarify just to bring it up to where we are in the 21st century. But we cannot make any kind of revisions or modifications to this particular statute until we adopt it, so it can be modified or revised to fit our needs. Oh, Ron is in.
Ron, go ahead, bud.
Yeah, Ron.
We got you.
Yeah, Ron.
We got to unmute, bud.
Oh, yeah, you're muted.
We got to unmute, Ron. Ron?
Ron, go ahead, Ron.
We can't hear you. You've got to unmute.
How's that?
Good. Go.
Yeah.
Right on. I've been quick monotony on the HRS you're referencing. And believe it or not, if you look at all the Land Commission awards and the royal patents, they say ana alodia, which means less than
alodio. That's correct.
Yeah, and in according to the definitions, because I have one of the few people on earth that have the original 1881 book of indices from the kingdom, it means less than allodial. So point is that you reference gathering rights, but only when the landlord obtains a allodial title. The only people that actually
correct.
the only people that actually have a allodial crown lands. Everybody else in allodial. All the
For those who purchase the absolute rights to the land.
Right. No. There's no, whether it's the Land Commission awards or royal patents, they're less than allodial. Ana allodial. Just saying.
Ours is allodial.
Huh?
We have an allodial title to our land in Avakee. It was given to us by Kamehameha.
But does the Land Commission award itself or the royal patent say ana allodial?
No, it says allodial.
Oh, yeah. Well, then that's kind of an anomaly in my experience, because the majority of ones, and I've seen quite a few, do say less than allodial. So if you've got one that says allodial, then that's the rarity. And the bigger point is, again, about the landlord thing. So all those gathering rights, that's when it becomes limited to what can native tenants can actually do.
Correct.
If the landlord's actually got a allodial title, you can't, as a native tenant, go take possession of that land and start taking care of it, unless they're letting it lie in waste.
Which is one of those things we see with a lot of lands awarded by DHHL. If you've seen some of the Hawaiian homes that have been awarded in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, it's embarrassing.
Oh, it's gross. More than embarrassing, right?
Yeah, it's embarrassing.
So anyway, so that if, like I said, if you got Pala that says allodial, then that's good. But because see, that's where I've been dangerous, is because I'm not totally mapapo Bahalelo Hawaii, but I'm mapapo enough to be dangerous and understand.
No, you're spot on. Yeah, ours is the Pala Sila Nui, 2023.
Right.
And I want to
Which one?
Pala Sila Nui, 2023.
Oh yeah, that'll be there. But I'm just gonna check it
this is-
quick, just
this is
for
a live-
reference. But
Ron, this is a live council meeting. We're actually trying to do motions and push things through and then take.
okay, cool. All right, I'll be
it's
quiet.
good. It's good discussion. We just want to make sure we stay
No,
on
that
the
was good.
focus of it. And
Yeah.
I want to make sure that we understand that when we say Hawaiian Islands inside of this future land topic with 2025 as a core, this is following this title process that we're discussing. So it's not like, hey, everybody get off your land and leave your houses and your hotels and just no, it's like,
Correct.
you just have the right to actually go through. And if there's a dispute that goes back, that case has to be proven, but it's proven one by one through a process. And that process is still to be determined in the future. The national parks is a subject of its own, and with a simple stroke of a pen, that can be done. And, people may say that's just not reality. It's never been done. We've asked for it numerous ways, but I would say that there are very different times that we're currently dealing in. And one of the things that really was eye-opening is look at what happened in Afghanistan. It's just, hey, go ahead and live your lives. Go ahead. And even though we've built this infrastructure, have at it. I'm not saying that's right or wrong or even the same topic, but it could be just that simple. Molokai, it's already there. These other islands, and this is already in state stature, but a lot of the things we're talking about is kind of something that's another year out, but the ability to actually have emotion and focus on this to then be able to go and provide notice, real notice, a real time frame and process that enables, like for instance, this legal notice to quit in certain areas, but it's got to be adopted and have a legal process, and then let the legal folks go through their steps. So, but does that make sense, Ron?
Yeah.
Okay. So Kamano.
Yeah, well, something that I also want to get to what Ron was saying, and I'm glad he said it, because it's something we don't allow our consciousness of today's to get into it. So if we're going to talk about what is the relevancy in terms of the law, Ron said, Kohoi Paiaina. There's a difference between Kohoi Paiaina and Hawaii. Kohoi Paiaina and Maui. The proper term to be used and is founded in Hawaiian Kingdom law is really Kohoi Paiaina. So one of the things we need to think about adopting is the term Kohoi Paiaina. And what does it mean?
Boom. I would propose we have that as an agenda for next week. That's an important topic. So on this,
I'm so sorry, guys. I gotta go. I'm running late. I gotta get ready to go to work.
On this, do we want to do a motion here so we can at least start the voting process?
Yep.
Anybody want to take a motion? Make a motion?
Yeah, I talked too much. Somebody make a motion, please.
Charles, you want to make a motion on this one? Or all?
Kind of hard because I'm getting a razor right now on my neck.
Oh, heavens. That's too funny. Come on in, why don't you go ahead and just wrap it all up then? Make the motion, we'll second it as appropriate.
Okay, I want to make a motion that we adopt HRS, call it my HRS, that we adopt the Civil Code of 1859, Section 1477, as it pertains to allodial title, gathering rights, water rights, and access rights to the people of Kohoi Paiaina. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, I want to make a motion that we adopt, let's see, the law of 1872, chapter 20, sections 1 and 3, as it pertains to land commission awards and land patents, with respect to the benefit of the heirs of those land commission awards, retaining all those rights. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. I think we're good.
So for
That's
folks,
a good start.
if you're running Hawaiian Life, all you do is you click on this and say, you pull up your scan within Hawaiian Life, go ahead and scan it, and it casts your vote cryptographically. So you can actually share your perspectives, have a voice, and still be anonymous, but the calculations are cryptographically taken. So this is a good example of how this new governance system can enable Hawaii to stand up and have topics and agendas and then move forward with it. It looks like we're going to miss this particular one here, but we'll keep it on the agenda for the future. And this is a declaration of unity for the digital world. This is a document that is super important, at least from my perspective. But if we could take some time and review this maybe before the next meeting, and then we come together, and go through this. It's really about how the individual has a responsibility before you can have liberty. You've got to be responsible and accountable, and how we can all work together as humanity in a unity-based way. So that link is here within the agenda. We can share that if anyone likes that as well. Kamano, if you want to take off, that's wonderful. And then we'll just have Raghu go through steps of basically what's happened in the past that's actually worked. So aloha Raghu, it's all you, bud.
Yeah, so I'm going to try. I haven't been able to figure out how to connect with you on Signal, but I did finish writing this up, so I'm going to send this to you right now.
Okay.
Revolution. Open.
And what I'll do is I'll modify it in real time so everyone can kind of see how it all works. So this is the steps. We'll edit it here.
Okay, so now just to get it, I just finished it and get this off to you. I guess I'll email it to you, or should I cut and paste it
You can
and send it to you through Signal?
Yeah, that either way is fine. Cut and paste it into Clear Signal would be ideal.
Let's go here. I think longer just to get this to you than it will to make the presentation.
If you want, we can push it to a future meeting.
I think you guys will be happy if we do it now.
Okay.
So the problem is that I have it on my computer and I don't know how to get it to you on Signal on my computer.
When your computer's out with me again, I'll have to synchronize both of them for you.
Let me do this here. We'll send it here. This is, well, this was shorter than I thought it would be. Pose. Proper. 6 steps. So I'll begin explaining this to you as you were to set this up on their system.
Am I waiting for it through email or?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to shoot it through the email because I can't figure out how to send it on. That's something.
So, are you gonna?
Raghu, you got some noise in the background.
Yeah, that's the tenants. I can go downstairs for more quiet. Let me see if this is sent. So it's sent on my side, and I'll just start going through these for you now.
Okay, I've got it. I'll go ahead and pull it up.
So, the reason why colonialism has been so successful is they have, and they were pretty well with the 6R, and then we can go through and give a little explanation. The response to it, they don't work. This number 4, secure assets. Number 5, provide platforms of management. And number 6, lead political agenda. So all almost without exception, this is that simple formula that they've used in every country. And almost without exception, it pretty well delivers the power that we don't like that they have. And if you reverse this, you can overtake the power, because power is based upon control of the assets and manpower, and then money, or money, manpower, and then assets.
Well done.
So with commerce, they always lead, right? They always lead with business. Hey, you know, with the natives, with America's natives, they came in and said, here's some guns, and here's some mirrors, and you know, here's some boots and shoes, and so they were very impressed. In India, it was so everyone always talks about the British that took India, for example, or a lot of the other colonies. But what led those was the British East India Company, right? It wasn't, they didn't lead with their military. So they go into China and say, hey, Liz, we got this coffee here that we got tobacco, we got cocaine, people will love it. We got our sugar, we got our grain. So whenever they always start with commerce. You're getting vast amounts of money, and the money itself becomes the fuel and the engine to be able to do everything else. Now, almost without exception, every other revolution always tries to lead without money. And you have this core dedicated group, and they're usually you know, they're groveling through, but they just don't have the resources in order to be able to move. So number one, commerce, build income streams and set market terms of engagement. So the second thing is that they start with commerce, but what they're actually doing is setting what commerce is. So in India, they went into India and they said, oh, if you want to actually be a cultured, sophisticated, educated, modern man, you won't take raw sugar. You're going to take this refined, bleached white sugar in little cubes. If you're going to be a refined English gentleman, you're not going to take whole wheat flour. You're going to take white flour. If you're going to be a man of culture, then you're not going to take whole milk. You're going to take pasteurized milk. Now, in each one of those cases, what it allowed them to do is actually take the entire industry by monopoly. So the farmers could still grow their whole wheat flour, but the price for it was very, very cheap. And if you wanted to process it, you had to go to a British mill in order to make it white flour. Same thing with the sugar. So they were able to suppress the prices of the wholesome wholesome traditional foods, and then make their products extremely expensive and profitable. And so this is where the reverse of that, as an example, would be organic, heirloom, artisan foods. So this is where we now control the terms of commerce. We make these very expensive, and the GMO and the processed foods, they are now so this is really, it's really critical to start with that, because once you set the terms of engagement of commerce, you are now controlling the market. Number two is the culture. So it was very interesting to see different documentaries and things. And so here you have like the Emperor of India, the kings of India. And then the viceroy comes into India, but he's followed by a bevy of, let's say, 90 media, court. And so it looks like this guy is the actual big player in the country, even though he only represents 0.01% of the people. Because of the media, or rather the culture, that creates the sense that he is more important than all the true power players. So in culture, there's the PR to win the local people. And that is media and entertainment, that is fashion, that is lifestyle, that is diet, that is social status. And all of these things are there to build the public support that this is what it means to be cool. So they went into India, they came into Hawaii, they did the same thing. And it's just a simple, they go in and they say, hey, if you want to be a man of sophistication, you can be a slave laborer at the farm, or, you can come into the city, get an education, and you can wear these cool clothes. We can watch these, this really cool entertainment, which, James Bond, which is really just the British going in and sabotaging, whatever local country is going on. That's actually what the story of James Bond is, right? They celebrated, here's our diets, here's our social status. If you wear clothes like this, if you smoke cigarettes like that, if you drink alcohol like this, and if you eat at these restaurants. So that is the culture. And so again, if we want to come in and lead with our culture, the gorgeousness is that people are hungry for the indigenous cultures. And when people come to Hawaii, they want the Hawaiian culture. So the first thing is go for the commerce, secure it, set the terms of it. And if the commerce is getting too strong with the native cultures, then they stop that. So for example, the British were cutting off the thumbs of the weavers of cotton in India because it could not compete with the British. In America, there was Black Wall Street. They burned it down because they couldn't compete. They didn't want people consolidating that market. Number one is the management of assets and resources. So what the British do, or what any of the colonial powers do, is say, hey, listen, you have all this land over there. We know how to organize land. We know how to organize the waters. We know how to organize the infrastructure. So they go in and they offer to manage those assets. And in doing so, they set the terms of what real management is. So you have all these indigenous cultures with all these self-sustaining farms that have gone on for, in India for millennia, in other places, at least for centuries. And they say, oh, well, actually, we're going to give you these kinds of seeds. They take more water. Therefore, you need to use our pumps and irrigation system. And you can grow a lot more. So, for example, the Rockefeller Foundation in India gave them, I think it was like 100 million or 200 million to the agricultural department of India. And then they went in and they destroyed all of there's two primary rice groups. And they had over 100 strands of rice. And they said, hey, listen, these other, there's no need for the duplication, use our rice. And it requires significantly more fertilizers, significantly more pesticides, significantly more water. It also has to be dug deeper, which requires tractors. So they go in, they take the assets, they start managing the assets. So that's number three. Number four is that once you're managing the assets, you say, hey, you know what, by the way, listen, this is ours. And really, you can really see this played out so simply here in Hawaii, where they came in, they said, oh, here's our culture, here's the cigarettes, here's the tea and coffee, here's the suits, and we're going to teach you how to manage your assets, dole, pineapple, and sugar cane, right? So they took over the assets. Once they were already running the assets, they said, we're going to buy the land. This is now ours. So once you have organized those assets, which is to say that that they're now being organized under your terms. So in the case of, so what the beauty is for us is that doing the opposite of what they do is the unraveling of their. So if we set the terms of commerce that we want organic, we want artisan, we want handcrafted, if we want heirloom pieces, which means that it's from the local people. So that's the commerce. The culture is that we want Hawaiian dance, we want Hawaiian language, we want Hawaiian fashion, we want Hawaiian diets. Now we're setting the terms that this is. And then number three is management. So in the case of Hawaii, right now they have 700,000 acres of arable land that's not being used. and we go and say, hey, we're going to organize this for you. Once you have secured that, once you start managing it, then you secure it. And what secure means is that your people take the leadership positions of those assets. So all of this is just so apparent in India because it's all Indians, and you have these white guys coming in and saying, oh yeah, we're the manager for, this village and this town and this land, and we're going to put in the water management. And then number 5 is provide the platforms of management. So they come in and they say, hey, listen, we're going to show you a better way of doing government, or we're going to help you organize government. And we have the voting system, and we have the legal system, and we have technology. So in India, the British went in, they put in the roads, they built out the bureaucracies. The bureaucracies was a primary. They put in the communications, the transportation, the banking and currency. And this is what Mike is bringing to the table. He's bringing the platform. And then last but not least is that once they're already organizing, then when they come in with their military or they come in with their political agenda, 80% of it has already been completed in the first 5 steps. The commerce has already set the terms, and then government's just going in there and saying, oh, we're just going to formalize that, and if you do opposite, it's illegal. And the same thing with the culture, that we're going to have to provide special considerations and special resources to, so you'll see that one of the persons that they give hundreds of millions of dollars to the media organizations. So the governments and the businesses, all the colonial businesses and governments, they always generously support the media, and that's the so-called entertainment. And then they're always there and saying, oh, we're going to manage these properties, and this is now off limits to the public in the name of environmental regulations, or, securing it for, the, whatever you call it, the animals and species, or we're going to do this. This is now set aside for just commerce, which means that 95% of the people can't use it because it's now commercially zoned, or vice versa. This is all single family home, which means that you can't build a community there. So what we generally see with the colonies is they do it just the opposite. Oh, and so let me just jump back to culture. Culture is about, they say divide and conquer, but that's only part of it. Really, it's about amassing the people's support. So India, the British were not able to take over India because they had the best guns. They were able to take over India because they had managed to win 10%, 15%, or 20% of the people to come and join them in their culture, in their business, and in their military, and in their bureaucracy.
What about use?
I'm sorry?
There's feedback on your side. There's somebody behind you.
So it's really about getting a strong set of people, to the local people, to now have a identity, a cultural identity, and then a sympathy and support. And so just to wrap this whole thing up, the purpose of the American Shopping Party is these 6 steps. So number 1, we lead with the commerce, that on one day a month, we're all going to buy local. We've now set the terms of engagement, and the terms of engagement for the businesses, you have to buy local. And we've set the terms of what the commerce is. It's all locally based. Then one day a month, we're putting the Hawaiians and the farmers front and center of the tourist experience. We're now building out the public support to come and join that culture. Because if you can get 5%, you're doing that's a good foothold. If you can get 20 or 30%, you're now actually beginning to take a majority of the momentum. Once you hit 50 and 60%, that's your culture. And so what we're after is, we need to be able to get those numbers of people. You have 200, what to speak of 400 or 600,000 people that are showing up. Everybody is on your page. Anyone that isn't selling local is now sort of out of step. And then management assets. So this is something that I was talking to Mike about, and we approached Mike Gabbard, which is want to ask the state for 1% of the state budget to go to farmers, small business, and Hawaiians. And on that as well, we're saying that 700,000 acres represents about $20 billion worth of, potentially up to $20 billion worth of food production. And so this is now double of Hawaii tourism at 10 billion. So what we're doing is we're taking their resources to now say, we're going to take care of managing this asset for you. We're going to manage the land. We're going to manage the water. We're going to manage the farming. We're going to need a little bit of money for it. And then last but not least, we now have Mike proper there that is providing the platform of management almost across the board. Now, generally what happens with, I've been to India, I've been to South America, I've been to throughout Europe, and generally people get into the law side, and they feel that if they can prove it in court, that they'll be able to win the case. But the law is simply there to validate the colonial control. That what they do is they always take over commerce, they take over the public opinion and stature, they take over management of assets, and then they take over government. And then if you want to challenge them in court, they'll allow you small sides of that. Okay, we'll give you a little victory, but on the big stuff, they're going to just take you out. So you want to get the other 5 up and running first, and then you can, then government is just sort of it's the mop-up job. So anyone that's rebelling, they try to start with governance, military, and some management, some bureaucracy. But that is the opposite end of the colonial model. Start with business, make the money, get the assets, get the public, and then secure the assets. Now, what we have here right now is that most people recognize that we are likely going to have another lockdown, or the US dollar is going to collapse, or oil is going to go through the roof, or the global supply chain is going to tighten up, or the globalists are going to come in and shut down farmers. One way or the other, food's going to go through the roof, and it's probably going to happen this year or definitely next year. And so this is our last window of opportunity to do 2 things. And as I said in a little write-up, we have a choice here. We're either going to be on the what side of that equation are going to be? Are we going to be part of those that suffer from the implosion of food supplies? Or, as Hawaii is especially gifted, are we going to be one of the leaders of the food supply? And so by charging in right now at the states, Senate and congressional, right now they're putting their measures through by going and saying we need to have 1%. We have the opportunity of securing enough land for every Hawaiian that wants to do farming to get the money, get the land, get the equipment, and get scaled up within the next 6 months. Now, if we demand 1%, the state budget is about 20 billion. 1% is 200 million. We should be able to walk off with at least half of that, which is $100 million. So I was talking with Charles, and Charles was saying, we're not sure we could get, 3 to 4 or 5,000 people, in order to put in the request. We're not sure we can get more than 500 to 1,000 farmers in order to make this request. We're not sure that we could get 10 or 15,000 people to show up to buy locally made that one day a month. That, my friends, is not only the problem, but the answer. So it's not a question that people won't do it. The question is what do we need to do to get them there? Once they're there, everything else happens. It will all happen once you get 50,000 people saying, I'm there for my small business, that one day a month, we cannot make it any easier for businesses, especially, the big box retailers, to carry one day a month. You got to carry something one day a month. We are setting the terms of commerce. And then we need to get 50,000 people. The question isn't people won't. The question is, what do we have to do to get people there? We need 20, 40, 60,000 people to show up at the Capitol and say, I'm sorry, this 20 billion is going to mean nothing if we get another COVID lockdown. And there's not going to be $10,000 unemployment checks coming from the feds and billions of dollars more to keep the doors open. The schools will be shut down. The transit programs will be shut down. That little $4 million, what do they call it, roundabout in place of streetlights. All those projects are going to stop. The only thing that's going to matter is how much food we have in the pipeline to be able to sell in one of the single greatest food supply shocks that the Western world has ever known, probably within a century. And people need to take it. So you can take an hour and a half or 2 hours one day to show up at the Capitol and know that we now have food supply in our supply chain, or we can go begging and starving in 6 months to 1 year from now. So we need to make it that stark. We need to make it that urgent. And if we get even 10,000, 5,000 maybe, but like 10, 15, 20,000, we get an extra $50 million. There's never been a time where you could get $50 to $100 million for an hour and a half of your time. So I would say, and this is the reason I wanted to do it in this meeting, we only have about another 2 weeks left before no more bills can be introduced. So we have about 10 days to organize this. It shouldn't be that hard. Do you want to starve, or do you want to leave the world's, be one of the world's food suppliers? And it's an hour and a half every time. Let's come down to it. And the thing is, it's really hard for the bureaucrats to say no to 1%. And if they do, it's like, fine, make it 0.5%. We want $100 million. So mind me for getting a little strong about this, but we are going to decide everything else. So when we have the big food supply implosion, or when the dollar falls, the gas goes up, the only thing that will matter is how much land have we managed to get the Hawaiians on with the equipment and food and seeds in order to scale their farming. Otherwise, you can have your rights, you're going to be standing in the same food line as everybody else.
Raghu, I don't think there could be any more important topic that we could address than this. This is so important, like number one underscore 50 times. So thank you for pushing to put this together and get it on the agenda and go through it. I hope people are getting this. I hope they're understanding. It's a simple thing. You gather, you party once a month, and you buy local, and then you go out and you actually start a career or a livelihood or a hobby or a hustle and grow food, special food that this earth will give us. Thank you for the years of dedication and for all the things that you've been through, just not over the 30 years, but for the last 30 hours. You're loved, you're appreciated.
Thank you, Mike.
There's a gentleman that's joined us near you. You need to meet with him. He's on this call. His name is Ron. I'll let you connect with him. And I just think both of you connecting and sharing life and a meal will go a long ways because you're both brilliant. He comes from it 30 years on the legal side, absolute brilliant. He's supposed to be in the middle of this. And I think you take shopping and you take his legal side and we literally, so anyways, I think any other things, topics, Charles, that you want to go through or focus on? I know that we're over on time, but Raghu, thank you again, bud.
Hey, man.
So without Kabanu here and going through this, we'll do this another time. Other than that, we've covered all of these except for Ron. We'll have you focus in on this on the next meeting. So thank you for all joining. We'll go ahead and wrap it up now. Are you in a place, Charles, where you can give us an invocation to close?
Oh, what? Give you a what again?
A prayer.
Sorry. Yeah. Father, I thank you for a gathering of hearts and minds. There will be men and women both listening to this in the future or even now. And I thank you for hearts and minds that would align with these concepts and ideas to bring back just a simple concept of humanity. We've gotten so disenfranchised in our hearts and minds. Bless each and every person that's on this call and the people that will be listening to this. Refresh them, renew them, touch them with your Holy Spirit. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Amen. That was beautiful. Thank you, Charles.
Ron, thank you for joining us. Tom, thank you for joining us. We look forward to your involvement on future meetings. You can literally log in and modify these agendas in real time. You can also see everything that's gone on. For anybody that wants to read, the Declaration of Unity is a very important document. It is found here. So thank you and much love. We'll talk to you later.